Democracy and freedom of expression is about tolerating the views that you don't like from someone you might not like. This is on 5FM Radio, bringing you hot, smoldering topics on a weekly basis. Your participation is important.
Good morning and welcome to the burning issue here on the Happy World of 5FM Radio on 899 in Lusaka and the surrounding areas. Today we turn our attention to one of the most important questions facing Zambia. After 5 years of the UPND in government, what is the true state of our economy and where is it taking the country over the next 5 years? Our guest is the man who has been at the center of Zambia's economic management during the period from 2021 to this year, 2026. And of course, he's been the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Hon.Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane. And of course, Doc, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed, and it's a pleasure for you to have me.
Let me also make mention to you, our listener, that our guest today, we have him via a virtual conversation. We will also be able to take your phone calls a little later for him. But also let me make mention that we are not only on live on 5FM here in Lusaka on 899, but we are also live on our partner media houses. We are live on BMTV as well. That is on channel 114 on Topstar and also on their Facebook page, BMTV Zambia. Also look out for Spice FM in Kabwe on 91.1, covering the rest of Central Province. So is ZFM based in Kapiri on 100.3 FM. And we are also live on the Copper Belt in Ndola is Platinum Radio on 99.7, covering the rest of the Copper Belt. We are live as well in Mansa on Tuta FM. In Mansa, that includes the entire Luapula province on 90.7. Not forgetting Senga Hill is live as well because we are live on Isunga Radio, that is in the northern province. Eastern province is well covered because Katete FM in Katete is equally carrying this program live. And like I earlier said, later in the course of the program, I will give you, our listener, an opportunity to call in and interact with our guest. Now, I don't know why in my script, Doc, I keep referring you to minister. Maybe it's good luck that you might actually be reappointed as Minister of Finance. But let's get. Never mind me when I address you as minister at some point. It kept coming up for me to address you that way. Now we're going to also be interested in looking at the overall economic performance after 5 years at the helm of Zambia's economy. What is the single economic achievement you believe ordinary Zambians can actually point to and say, yes, my life is better because of this government? Has the UPND delivered the economic transformation, or has it mainly succeeded in stabilizing an economy that was already in crisis? Why should Zambians then expect the next 5 years to produce different results?
Well, I think you partly answered the question yourself. Stabilizing the economy is not just an abstract or an imaginary thing. It is a real thing, because if you recall, prices were always increasing faster at the time when we got into office. You also recall that the US dollar price, the exchange rate, was also collapsing. Stabilizing those issues was not a simple thing. It was related to the issue of getting the debt, which had become a problem, to be restructured So we managed to stabilize the exchange rate, managed to stabilize prices. Without stabilizing the prices or inflation, by now the cost of living would even be higher, because it is the stabilizing, it is stabilizing the exchange rate, it is stabilizing the prices that slows down the rise in the cost of living. If you don't stabilize that, prices will keep on rising faster and faster and faster. Without that stabilization, the dollar today might be at 40, prices will be higher than what they are today. So stabilizing is a very important thing. The next thing that I want to mention, you recall that our economy as of now, it is highly dependent on the mining sector, because it is the mining sector that brings us foreign exchange, foreign currency. It is the mining sector that supports so many small businesses, suppliers, small contractors, and so forth. It is the mining sector that pays the biggest portion of the taxes to our country. This is the sector that we found to be in shambles. If you recall, KCM was down, Mopani was down, the others were threatening to leave. Not only have we managed to stabilize things, but all these mining companies are now expanding production, which means more jobs, which means more business for our suppliers, which means more taxes to be received from the mining companies. That has been a very critical thing in terms of the economy. And the third thing that I want to mention is government spending money on the poorest of the poor, supporting the poor people. I know our competitors don't want us to talk about this, but I think for us it's very important that we talk about this, because we managed to send 2.5 million children to school who were out of school because their parents could not afford. We managed to hire so many teachers because many of these schools did not have teachers. We managed to do so many classrooms through CDF and other things. So the summary of it all is that we've spent money supporting the weakest in our society, and that is very important. And you see them recognizing this. This is why you see that in the elections, when the UPNG has made inroads in places where it was not known to be strong, with more MPs in Eastern Province, more MPs in Luapula, more MPs here in Lusaka. I think we have the majority of MPs in Lusaka.
Right.
So all this is recognition by the weak in our society that we've touched their lives through CDF, through cash for work, through social cash transfer. So these are the key things that I think we've managed to achieve in the last 5 years. Of course, I could go on and on, but I think these are the most important.
Right. And Doc, Zambia remains at a high risk of debt distress. What guarantees do you have or can you give that the country will actually not return to the excessive borrowing and debt accumulation that eventually led to, the 2020 default? I'm asking this because your government considers debt restructuring also as one of its biggest achievements. And you've just stated probably the impacts of your policies. But the big question I think even your competitors have had was that much as there was that debt restructuring, but when will the ordinary Zambian actually feel the benefit of restructuring in terms of lower taxes, better services, and more disposable income?
They are already feeling those benefits. The reason why we're able to send children to school is because there was less money being paid for debt service. And I don't think we should underrate this, to send 2.5 million children to school who were never able to do so because their parents could not afford. They're also feeling it because of all those things that I spoke about, hiring more teachers, hiring more health staff. If you look at my constituents, for example, in Iliua, almost everywhere, I would say 80% of the primary schools in Iliua, next to them is a health center. As opposed to the days when they would walk 40, 50, 60 kilometers to go to the nearest health facility. Today, they have to walk maybe 7, at most 8 kilometers. Many of them within 3, 4 kilometers, they have a health facility. These are genuine and real benefits. Sometimes we tend to, those of us in urban areas, we tend to think that Zambia is Lusaka, Zambia is a Copperbelt, but Zambia is also out there in Mbala, Zambia is out there in Senga Hill, out there in Ukulu. So these are the benefits that the voters have recognized. So, of course, now the issue that we need to, and which I think we'll be talking as we move ahead with this interview,
Right.
the issue of how do we get the Zambians to benefit even more than what is the situation today. But otherwise, the benefits have already been derived.
Now, let's also discuss a bit about the IMF and the successor program. We know that after completing the previous IMF program, the question is, why does Zambia need another IMF program? What did the first program fail to resolve? And what difficult conditions should Zambians expect under the new IMF arrangement, if at all it comes with any difficulties, that is? And when will Zambia finally reach a point where it no longer needs IMF support to manage its economy?
Yeah, the difficulties that you're talking about from the IMF, I would argue that and say that the IMF program that we went through, actually, in many instances, it made life better for the ordinary person. I know this may sound strange to many of us, but let me repeat and say, if your child was not going to school and is now able to go to school, partly because of the IMF support, supporting us in debt restructuring and supporting us financially, your child goes to school, your child is now sitting on a proper desk instead of sitting on the ground. Your wife is able to go to the nearest clinic. Your child, who had finished school maybe 7, 8 years ago, went to college for teaching, and now got into a job. I don't see how anyone can characterize this development in the last 5 years as stringent. I think those who talk about stringent, about the programs of the IMF in the 1970s, early 80s, when in fact the approach was just cut down expenditure without looking at what kind of expenditure. But this time around, it was really pushing expenditure toward the social safety nets, which is what has happened. So coming back to your question of what do we expect the next program, the next program is necessary because, as you said it yourself, we've done the debt restructuring, but the debt restructuring of today that we went through compared to the one that we went through during the time of Levy Patrick Manawasa, where I was the economic advisor, and the Minister of Finance then was Peter Maga. The difference between that debt restructuring and what we have is that debt restructuring was actually debt write-off. debt forgiveness. The IMF, World Bank, and many other donors said, you owe us so much, but we write this off. Don't ever pay us. So in one go, the debt just disappears because it was written off. The debt restructuring I went through this time is different because it was not a write-off. There was a bit of writing off, but it was very small. The bulk of the structuring of the debt was to stretch it. Instead of you paying me back in 4 years, pay me back in 20 years, so that what you pay per year becomes less. So it was not a debt write-off. It was that the debt restructuring, yes, it's given us relief, but it's not the kind of relief like what we had during the time of Manawasa. Why is this the case? Because those who lent us money said, but we only forgave you about 10, 15 years ago. Why did you get yourself back into problems? So yes, we'll give you a relief, but will not write off the debt that was acquired during the period of the PF. So that being the case, it is not a debt write-off. We are still paying debt, and therefore we still need the support from the IMF for another maybe another 3 years. After that, we should basically be okay. But there's another side to this. Debt is a problem if you don't earn enough money to pay what you owe. Okay? But if you are indebted, in other words, you owe people money, but you are able to generate a lot of money for yourself, even what appeared to be a big debt and sustainable debt becomes manageable. So, to get to that side of the equation where we earn more money so that we can sustain this debt, there's a number of things that we've done, mostly all about encouraging a bigger economy. Encouraging a bigger economy, more especially opening more and more mines, because it is these mines that pay taxes that give us money, that give us foreign currency to be able to pay back what we owe. So this is where you heard us saying, let's stabilize the old mines, and they're now all expanding production toward that 3 million tons of copper. Let's open new mines, like the one at Mingomba, outside Chilagombo there. The groundbreaking was already done earlier this year. So we expect the ramping up of the development of the mine. We expect more and more mines being opened in Mumbwa, northwestern province, those that had been dead, like Luansha, Kalengwa, and more importantly, there's a lot of exploration that is going on in the country now, a lot of it. So in the next 5 years, you see a lot of mines opening, and with that, you expect also a lot of businesses that are linked to mines opening up. So all these new mines that are going to open will help us to create jobs, create business opportunities, and of course, because the country will get more money, we will be able to deal with the debt that we have, and therefore also the need for an IMF program should really eventually disappear in the next 5 years. Now, let me also remind you that by 2011, under the MMD, we had graduated from IMF programs totally because there was no need. After the debt write-off, the economy was growing. The IMF program became necessary when during the 10 years of our colleagues, the PF, they again went back to serious borrowing. That, of course, meant that we needed to be supported from the IMF. So it is very possible to get back to the conditions of 2011 when we don't need an IMF program.
But the big question, Doc, is have we started paying the debt?
Yes, certainly we have started paying the debt. We are on track. We have not failed to pay any debt that is fallen due. So the issue of defaulting, that is history behind us now. Every time we are servicing our debt. I also want to tell you that currently the heavy debt servicing is less on the foreign debt, what we owe to the foreigners. There is debt servicing on that, but that's not where most of the heavy lifting is. Most of the heavy lifting is on the domestic debt presently. The domestic debt rose very fast after 2015 because when our colleagues realized that there was a problem with external debt, they started heavy borrowing now on the domestic market. They issued a lot of treasury bills around 2015, 2016. So things like fertilizers were paid for by issuing treasury bills. In other words, writing an IOU to the suppliers. The supplier will be given a check, blank or a check, and say, in 5 years' time, go and cash this check. I don't have money today as government, but in 5 years' time, go and cash this check. So they were paying fertilizer suppliers using that method. They were paying some fuel suppliers using that method and other expenditures. Now, those checks were falling due this year. Many of them were falling due this year. Treasury bills, they're falling due this year. So, as a result of that, what is now more painful for us to service is the domestic debt, less more for the external debt. But this will be resolved as the economy gets bigger. We will receive more tax revenues. We will be able to service this debt and remain with sufficient funds for us to deal with infrastructure, hospitals, roads, stuff like that. So we'll get there in the next 5 years. This is where we are focusing our minds on.
And at what annual growth rate does Zambia need over the next 5 years that you keep mentioning, and for for us to genuinely transform living standards, and what sector will drive that growth? Do you have any in mind?
Yeah, the growth that is ideally, the growth, just to explain what it is, if we're a farmer, if I can reduce it to a farming activity, if we're a farmer, last year you harvested 100 bucks, growth means this year I should harvest more than 100, I should perhaps harvest 120. If I was a fisherman, last year I harvested, say, 5 tons. This year, I should not harvest 5 tons again. I should harvest something more, say 7 tons. So every economic sector must produce more than what they produced the previous year. That's what growth means. And of course, with higher production, it means more money. So at the aggregate or at the total level for the whole country, if you add up all these production taking place in the sectors, that's what we call the GDP growing, because we are barely just adding up what everybody produces and comparing with what we produced last year. Now, for us as a country to have impact, of course, impact is always there, but we need faster impact because, let's not forget it, there are all these young people who are coming on the labor market. They are looking for jobs. They are looking for schools. They are looking for the facilities. So population is pushing us to do more and more to be able to satisfy the needs of the people. So a comfortable rate will be somewhere around 7% growth every year. So this is what we are aiming for, 6-7% every year consistently without a break. This is what we are looking for. You were asking about the sectors.
Yes.
Certainly, the mining sector is one of those that is on track. I told you about the exploration that is taking place. I told you about the mines, the old mines that are all increasing production. I told you about the old mines that had been closed for many years, Luansha, Kalengwa, and many others that are also ramping up production. I told you about brand new mines. And let me remind you that for many, many years, the mines that we have been operating in Zambia are the mines that were left behind by the colonialists. Okay? Left behind by the colonialists. If you count the number of mines that were opened after independence, they're actually few. The ones that I know is the Solwezi, those first quantum mines, that is Karumbila, Kantanshi, and so forth, Lumwana. As far as I can tell, those are the only two mines that we've opened right since independence. Can you imagine? How can you expect to have prosperity if you have to depend on the mines that were left behind by the colonialists? This is why this government now is pushing hard to say, guys, we can't rely on what the white man left behind, the colonialists. Let's now open more and more mines, and this will be our song in the next 5 years. Mines take a bit of time to develop. It's not like agriculture where you start planting this year, next year you are receiving harvest. It takes 5, 6, 7 years, even more, to develop a mine. But the good news is that we are already in the process. So the next 5 years, you should see a dramatic change in our mining sector in Zambia. The next 5 years, we should also see a dramatic change in the manufacturing sector. This is a sector that has been growing very well. This government has given an example of the fertilizer plants here in Lusaka West, where previously Zambia was an importer of fertilizer. Now we are an exporter of fertilizers. The Mlungush textiles, the tiles. Right now, if you recall, in the budget of 2026, we gave some incentives for assembly of motor vehicles. I believe the machinery for that is on the way. That's what I was told just before government dissolved. The machinery for motor assembly is on the way, if it is not already in the country. So we provide more and more incentives.
Well, Doc, we seem to have lost you slightly there. That obviously technology, but we should be able to have you back as soon as possible. Let me just take this opportunity to quickly remind our listener out there that this is the Tuesday edition of The Burning Issue here on 5FM Radio on 899. And we are discussing Zambia's economy going forward, especially in the next 5 years. And our guest this morning is the immediate past Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane. And we were right in the middle of it when we obviously had a glitch on the connection. Remember, we are also hosting him via virtual. And we so far have discussed quite a number of issues with regards Zambia's economic achievements in the past 5 years. And he was explaining to us also on how the next 5 years looks like, or what the next 5 years looks like. And in this case, we should definitely be getting to a conversation now deeper into the fact that the UPND themselves have set a target of approximately $65 billion in annual economic value to be achieved. And we want to find out how and where exactly that figure comes from, the figures comes from, and what proportion represents genuine GDP. Is it on export? Is it on government revenue? All those questions up ahead of us. And of course, once we establish connection with Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane, we should definitely be also discussing taxation and revenue. And remember that there is another sector that has cried foul. We have seen a betting industry who have cried foul as a result of higher taxes, and some of them have folded eventually. And what does that mean? Does that mean that we are getting to a point where investment is going down? Doc, we have re-established communication. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now, Doc, I'm not sure if you still remember your last thought. Would you want to wind up on it?
I think we're just talking about how we expect expansion in the mining sector, how we expect expansion in the manufacturing sector. I also want to say that we expect expansion in the energy sector. There's a lot of investment that is underway right now, which is very important given the fact that there's a feared drought that is on the way. There will be a lot of expansion in the energy sector using coal and solar. We also expect a lot of expansion in the infrastructure sector, especially railways. Right now, I think the rehabilitation of Tazara is started or is about to start. I think they've started. So the Tazara is being rehabilitated. People will be very busy along the route all the way from Nakonde to Kaprimposhi as the rehabilitation takes place. We also expect the construction of the Lobito to start. I saw about 3 weeks ago a news item which says that the money necessary has now been organized. So infrastructure is also going to create jobs in terms of both the railway line, Tazara and Lobito, but also the roads. That will also absorb a lot of labor. The roads from Solwezi to Kipushi, the road from Luana to Kambimba, the road from going to, I've forgotten the place, somewhere in the northwestern province. Then, of course, Katete to Janida. There is also continuation of the Luapula to Luapula Road, Luapula province, from Kasomeno in Congo DRC to Mwenda on the Zambian side, and many other road infrastructure that will be coming up. So all these things are going to push production, leading to that 7% growth that I spoke earlier on. Of course, so we expect growth to rise even faster than before. So this will be seen in terms of jobs, business opportunities. The next 5 years will certainly be much better than the last 5 years.
Doc, I'm glad that you spoke about the roads, and we've seen that the PPP has mainly concentrated more on roads. Are there other sectors that you intend to also implement the PPP? I know that on your books, I think that Zanaco is one of the successors of PPP, but then Zambians are asking any other sectors that you feel PPP can help develop this country?
Yes, actually, the PPP Act was changed. For the most Zambians, especially the small people, there are now possibilities for you to do a small project under PPP. You can, for example, if you make a proposal to do something like a college, to do something like a hospital, where you use your own money. You use your own money to develop that, and then the government, or rather the users of that facility, because PPP is about a private sector person doing public infrastructure, and then you charge a fee, just like on the road. The road is normally a public infrastructure. Somebody uses their own money to build that road. They recover the money by charging a fee for the usage of the road. So similarly, you can extend that to smaller infrastructure projects. But of course, you must agree with the government. Government must agree that such an infrastructure is important, and you must also agree that you are going to recover your money by charging a fee on the users. So it differs from government borrowing, because you get your money from users. So on the energy sector, there are also others who have proposed PPPs. This is very important. The border posts, border areas, there are a number of companies that have come up, like the ones that are doing Sakanya border posts outside Ndola. There are others who are doing the Kipushi border posts linking Zambia and DRC from Solwezi. I think there's another one near Kambimba there. But the field is open. There are roads that are being constructed that may require border posts. So yes, the sector is open. Just come up with your idea, and let's see what we can do.
Right. Now, the UPND has set a target of approximately 65 billion United States dollars in annual economic value. The big question is, where exactly does this figure come from, and what proportion represents genuine GDP, export and government revenue, maybe?
Well, GDP is always genuine. There is no false GDP, because it's something that is measured very accurately by experts. The reason why we need a bigger economy is to answer the core of the young people. The core of the young people is, where are the jobs? I've done my training, I'm a doctor, I need a job. I've done my training, I'm an engineer, I need a job. I've done my training, I'm an accountant, I need a job. Some of those jobs, of course, can be provided by government, but in the normal economy all over the world, the bulk of the jobs come from the private sector. This is why we must do everything possible to encourage the private sector to grow bigger. So in short, the answer to your question, to address the needs of the young people, fighting poverty, creating jobs, creating business opportunities, that comes through a bigger economy. If I have to reduce that to a simple level, more jobs will come from mining sector that is expanding. Because when there are more mines opening, that leads to a higher GDP, but it also means that job opportunities are opening up in every mine that is opening. Higher GDP means more manufacturing firms opening. That addresses the issue of jobs because when factories are opening, motor assembly plants, value addition to agriculture produce, that's how jobs gets created. So if we want, and this is exactly what we want, since we want our people to live better, we need more and more investments, more and more farms, more and more mines, more and more trading hubs, more and more factories. That is where the attention of this country is going to be focused on in the next 5 years to address the needs of the young people.
And Doc, I'm glad that you're talking about the young people and of course how private sector is always the number one employer or creator of jobs. But let's discuss one important issue that falls under the ministry you managed for so many years through ZRA. I mean, there is a conversation going on how fair for an SME this is to incur a tax obligation on an invoice when the customer has not yet paid. And of course, this effectively is forcing the business to pay tax on money it does not have. And I'm talking about this because this is the issue of smart invoice. And I think that a number of it's also a question of, have you implemented this prematurely, knowing that this is an economy that relies on an invoice that is paid 30 days and sometimes even government is a culprit of late payments?
Yeah, we can address that issue. Let's not pretend that there are no practical problems like that. This is why the president set up the public-private dialogue forum. Public-private dialogue forum. Because there will always be issues in society. If there's a situation like that and it is genuine, we need to address it. So I think the UPND government will always be ready to listen to those issues like the one that you've given. Regarding the smart invoice, it is important that was introduced for several reasons. One is that if you look at the VAT, tax, value-added tax, it has been abused for many, many years. People collect VAT from you as a customer. You go and buy a TV set, you are charged VAT, but that VAT is pocketed by the business person. Somebody will go to the mining sector, I supply you with this material, and I will charge you VAT. So the mine pays VAT to this person, who is expected to convey that VAT money to ZRA, and they pocket the money. Meantime, the mine sector will come to ZRA and say, I paid Mr. A VAT as per the laws in this country and indeed all other countries in the world. Can you now refund me this VAT? Meantime, the person never delivered the VAT. Now, to control this kind of fraud manually is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So there were people who were running business on the basis of just defrauding ZRA, and therefore it became necessary to digitize the processes so that when you receive VAT, you are supplied to the mines, and the mines pay you VAT. ZRA will be able to tell that Mr. A was paid VAT, therefore the ZRA computers will say Mr. A owes you money, go for him. So I think that is legitimate, that is right, because if we allow people to collect taxes and they keep it themselves, how does the government build roads? How do we keep on providing education? How do we provide health? So this is the main intention of the smart invoice, to stop those frauds that were taking place. And I think that is right.
The betting industry taxes is one of the issues that has arisen, and the higher taxes on betting businesses have reportedly resulted in some operators closing or scaling down. Has government calculated the jobs and investment lost as a result of these tax measures?
I think that government did listen. At time we met with them, heard them out. They heard us out, and I think some compromise was reached, as far as I can recall. If there's two issues, I go back to what I said earlier on: the public-private direct forum. Let's discuss. They can discuss with the government and come to a fair solution. But I remember that there was a change as a result of the presentation that the betting industry made.
Now, Doc, let me also, before we start thinking of the phone calls from our listeners, government says that, the private sector must drive the next phase of growth. I mean, what will you do different in the next 5 years to make credit, taxation, and regulation less burdensome for SMEs?
First of all, let me say that SMEs are, of course, a very important component in the business development, but they are not the only ones. I think we have to be careful that we don't just focus on one segment of operators. It is like, or rather, let me say that, in fact, the relationship between SMEs and big companies. In countries like Japan, China itself, Germany, there's a relationship between big companies and the SMEs. Why? Because if you look at the manufacturing of Toyota cars, for example, or another cars, the manufacturer, the big company like Toyota, there are certain things that this will do ourselves, okay? Like the engine, the gears and so forth, that they say they'll do. But there are certain other things where they say this will give other people to do for us, maybe things like radios, maybe things like speakers, maybe things like tires, maybe things like... Now, close Toyota, and these SMEs who do the mirrors, who do the bumpers, they are in trouble. They will not be able to operate. So let's not talk as if there's a fight, conflict between the big operators and the small operators. They depend on each other. Even here, you know that when the mines are operating well, the small people also do well. Close the mine, those small people also close. So we have to promote both of them. And this is what precisely we are doing as a government, promoting both the big players and the small ones because they support each other. So you ask the question, what are we going to do differently? The key here is to make conditions better, operating conditions better for companies to operate. I think we've heard of things like delays in the approvals of things like environmental clearance. The last 5 years we pushed very hard, but I don't think we are yet there. Things like licenses, let's not pretend it. I think there's been a lot of talk about corruption. in the way licenses are given. We need to address those issues. The issue of land. Every factory must somehow find a piece of land to sit on. Every farm must find it. So these processes where government is in charge, we have to be more facilitative. And this is where, as politicians, our job is to put a close eye on what our colleagues in the civil service do, because these are services that are provided in the civil service. We have to put our foot down and say, title deed, if you apply today, after so many days, there must be yes or no, depending on the criteria that has been set. I know the president has been very hard on the Environmental Council, where previously it would take years for an environmental permit to be given. I think we managed to push that to a couple of months, but we need to do more. So this is basically about an issue of the civil service being more efficient, the civil service and government in totality, eliminating corruption. So this is what we have to do. We also have to, of course, market our country, the opportunities that are there, the mines that are there, the manufacturing opportunities. But when we attract investments, whether it is local or foreign, we must service those industries faster and efficiently. If we don't do that, we are in the world of competition. People go to another country where they can be facilitated faster. So this, I know, is the president is very strong about it. We are all very strong about it. In the next phase, we don't want delays. Anyone who is going to cause unnecessary delays, you are preparing yourself for a fight with the administration.
And also, when you spoke about licenses and so on, the other issue I think that is frustrating entrepreneurship is how many of them we have to subscribe to for one to do business. Are you looking into probably just putting all-in-one certificate, or is it a license?
All those are part of what we are discussing. And I want to urge the colleagues in the private sector to take this offer from government to say, you sit down there, let's talk, tell us what your frustrations are, let's work out a solution together. Because we can't solve this problem alone as government. It is the operators, it is the actors in the private sector with the knowledge of the problems that they're going through. It's them to report and say, here we have a problem, here we have a problem, let's discuss a solution. I think don't sit back and just complain. Come forth, lay your issues on the table, and we can monitor ourselves and say, this has been laid on the table. We give ourselves so much time to solve this problem. That is what we need to do to encourage more investment, jobs, and business opportunities in our country.
Doc, finally, before I invite our listeners to call in and interact with you, the stronger kwacha, we know realistically that it has helped reduce cost of imports. But could it also make Zambian exports less competitive? Are you concerned that an excessively strong currency could hurt local producers?
Yes, that is always a possibility. Again, I would say, let the private sector operators come forth. Let's talk about it. When the exchange rate was getting weak, we heard so many complaints, people saying the cost of doing business is getting high. Can you stabilize the exchange rate? Which we worked very hard and achieved. So similarly, if there is now concern that the strong kwacha is hurting businesses, we can have an honest conversation about it and see what we do. Because ultimately what we want is to have a bigger economy. more factories, more exports, more farms. If we don't achieve those things, then of course, we are not helping ourselves. So the door is open. The door is open. Bank of Zambia, when the government is finally created, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, the Minister of Agriculture, come forth. Let's discuss and see what we do.
Thank you very much, Doc. And of course, this is the Tuesday edition of The Burning Issue here on 5FM 899. We are also live on our various partner media houses. We are live on BMTV, and BMTV is on channel 114, that is on Topstar. Also on their Facebook page live, that's BMTV Zambia. We are also live in Kabwe and Central Province on Spice FM and ZFM in Kapiri. Copper Belt, we are on Platinum Radio. And not forgetting Tuta FM in Mansa, Isunga Radio in Senga Hill, Northern Province. Not forgetting Katete FM as well. And we are also live on our Facebook page, 5FM Radio Zambia. Leave us a comment or a question. We will now get into your question session now with Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane. He is the immediate past Minister of Finance and National Planning. And of course, recently re-elected, went unopposed in the Lua constituency. He's back into Parliament as well. Let's take some calls on 0955-221515. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Zach.
How are you today?
I'm all right, my dear. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Please share your name and where you're calling us from.
Thank you very much. Good morning, the doctor.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Musokotwane.
Good morning.
This is Mr. Simwanza. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. This is Peter Simwanza calling you from Kabwe.
Great.
I've been listening to your conversation and I've followed it very well. The doctor has also touched to some of the roads. I know and trust that the doctor has traveled a lot in this country, Zambia. I'm one of the worried persons to my new constituency, Kilinda, in Chinsari. There is the Chambesh Bridge. I know he would be one of the persons Minister of Infrastructure has been going to find out, to release money. May I be issued with the information of the governors have been going on, how far this bridge cannot be worked on, Chambesh Bridge. It has remained quiet from Kaundas up to now.
Thank you.
Please, thank you, my dear.
Thank you very much for that. Let me see, Doc, if I can pick up a few more calls for you on 0955-221515. We have a caller. Good morning. Please share your name and.
Francis Mumbimpika East, Mwana Mubiza, calling you from Lusaka Town. Good morning to you, that's in the studio.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning to you, Honorable Minister. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yes, good to hear from you, Minister. And it's good to have people like you who are speaking what is on the ground and what you're doing now. There are a few questions that I want to put across you and a few points I want to enlighten you, Honorable Minister. The issue of now that the elections are over and you managed to win, congratulations, to go unopposed and so on. Has the President promised to reappoint you to the same Minister of Finance? Has that been communicated to you, or what is the situation like? That's point number one. I know you've done a good job and you can even do better, but that is the question that I wanted to hear from you, straightforward, than to, hear from here and there. Then the other issue, Honorable Minister, there are so many critical issues that the opposition could have put across during the campaigns, going around the country. If that way, we shall do this and that over students, over the economy of this country, the copper mines, we are going to do this and that. How many things have you learned? I know sometimes the opposition people may perceive them to just be talking, but as minister, somebody who's serious about making sure this economy is turned around, because Zambia is a very rich country, and we need to do what is correct for this country. So, in your case as minister, what things have you learned that the opposition have put across that you can help us as a nation have those things implemented now that you are the ones that have been elected into government? And also, ZESCO. I want to talk about ZESCO, Honorable Minister. I'm trying to suggest, I've suggested this before, and I'm going to suggest it now because it's an opportunity to speak to you as Minister of Finance. You may not have listened to some of this program. ZESCO, I feel ZESCO needs a parent company, a company that can bring competition to the same ZESCO, create another company called ESCOs, turn ZESCO round, name it ESCOs, Electricity Supply Corporation of Zambia. And the discrepancy is let the old ZESCO continue with its old ways of doing things, hydropower, all these things here and there. But the new one, put a different managing director or director to ensure that the same company is able to manufacture solar power equipment, the same company look at all alternative sources of power, and then anything to do in terms of the business line concerning power generation, the other company should take total control of that area so that we've got diversity. People can go either the solar way, the ESCOs, or the ZESCO way, the usual ways of making a power that we have in this country. Because when there's monopoly in a country of a particular institution, they got to sleep sometimes. Instead of doing what is correct, the few, who else is going to bring competition to us? So when such a parent company is put across, Honorable Minister, take this very, very seriously. And if I do, I would have explained more, but because of my time on radio, this is what I can say for now. Consider that in the future, we'll try to get to you and give you a few tips here and there. Also on the issue of Zambia Airways, I feel this is very important. The cargo area, we are losing a lot of money on the cargo part. If Zambia Airways could have 3, 4, 5 cargo planes, apart from the passenger traveling, you get a point. If we're able to have that, we'll be able to export fresh products. Products like vegetables, flowers, we used to have Vega a long time ago, fish, all these things can be exported to Europe anywhere if we have a cargo section that is very well equipped with proper aeroplanes. So what is it that you think you're going to do if you are brought back as minister to ensure that all those things are done, Honorable Minister? And I feel I'm happy now being able to bring this point across directly to you. And NIMA must never die. NIMA enhance it and make sure NIMA works the way it should work, because it's like somebody, people are more interested in ensuring their vehicles than in their health.
Thank
so
you, Francis.
NIMA,
Thank
if it is enhanced, Mr. Honorable Minister, every Zambian will benefit at the end of the day. You can't live without an insurance scheme of health.
Thank you.
That is my humble contribution for this morning, and I wish you all the best and let Zambia prosper. Zambia must come first. We are one Zambia, one nation. We should live together.
Thank you.
In society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis. Because Francis has raised a couple of issues, Doc, I will let you go straight into responding.
Thank you very much for the questions and comments made. The bridge on the Chambeshi, I'm afraid I don't have details on that, but I can find out, because I've been away from the office for the last 3 months. I can find out and send the information to you, Zax.
Right.
Then you can convey that to him. On the reappointment, as we know, this is a prerogative of the president. So it is up to him to make the decision, and we should give him the space to do so. The things from some of the things that were being spoken of from the opposition, some of them, of course, were just made to gain votes. Some, of course, were genuine. The issue of employment, for example, the issue of business opportunities. Not that they were more competent to do these things, because I don't think they were, given the fact that they had 10 years to do it under PF, but they didn't. But there's no denying the fact that jobs is something that we can all see. For the young people, it is a very important thing to do. And this is why I said in the next 5 years, we will push very hard. We will push very hard. Every enterprise that is proposed, whether it is a mine, whether it is a farm, whether it is support for the SMEs, we are going to push very hard. I think on the part of the Zambians, one of the things that I also want to say, this cannot come about just because, this cannot come about only through government. Every Zambian has a contribution to make towards jobs. What do I mean? If you are given a loan through CEC and or CDF, it is your responsibility to use that money in the manner that you propose to do, so that you are able to pay back. Then another Zambian can benefit from your paying back by getting a loan for them also to do something. So the responsibility is on each and every one of us when an opportunity is granted to use that opportunity to the best of our ability. I also want to say that in countries that have made progress, we have to change the way in which we do things. And this is where sometimes it becomes hard, because you want to live well as an individual, as a country. There's no shortcut to it but to produce more. If you ever get a promise to say, me, I will make you rich and so forth, blah, 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 without the person making a promise describing how they are going to make you work harder and produce more, then just know that they're just deceiving you. It will not happen. So this is why towards the end of Parliament, I spoke about us Zambians changing the way in which we do things, so that we push ourselves, push the government so that we deliver more, but the government must also push you as an individual to be able to produce more. If you're a bricklayer, lay more bricks. If you're a carpenter, do more. If you are a plumber, do not do a job that is shoddy. Do a job that is correct. If you're in a factory, do not steal from your employer, because stealing from your employer means that the company is going to make less money. You may get away with it yourself because you've stolen, but for the company in totality, it's going to lose money, and sooner or later, the company may close, and you all suffer. So these are things that we are going to address, labor reforms in the next 5 years, to say to ourselves, how do we collectively push ourselves to work smarter, to produce more, to work honestly. So the task towards job creation is not just one for government, it's for every citizen to embrace, so that we produce more. Look at I think the usual thing in Zambia is to bash Chinese. But I would say that, yes, there may be some wrong thing that the Chinese people do, but the more important thing is to learn to work like the way they do. Okay? They don't just abandon sites. Every day there's a target. Today we are going to do so much, and if that target is not reached, no one goes home. You have to do that. You have to complete that task. These are positive things to learn from these people, even as we complain about certain things that they may do wrongly. But let's adopt the positive things, because the only way to get rich, the only way to live well, is to produce more and more. On the ZESCO and the competition, actually there's already competition. It's one of those areas where in the last 5 years there's been a lot of reform to change dependence on energy, focus purely on ZESCO. Let me say a little bit on that. Today, there are so many companies that are generators of electricity, not just ZESCO. There are many companies, big and small. Let me remind the country that from until about 2 years ago, the total installed capacity for electricity was just over 3,000 megawatts. Just over 3,000 megawatts. In the last 5 years alone, we've added an extra 1,000. So what does that mean? 60 years, we installed capacity for only 3,000 megawatts. But in 5 years, you do 1,000. This is a dramatic change. If only in the last even 10, 20, 30 years, every other government was creating capacity for power generation in the manner that the UPND government has done, would never be worried about power shortages today. But this extra power generation capacity that has been installed, a lot of this is coming from the private sector. The reforms that allowed this to happen is that in the past, if you generated power, for example, in Mamba or somewhere there in Situmbeko using solar,
We lost Doc again. We will make that effort to have him back very soon. Again, this is the Tuesday edition of The Burning Issue here on 5FM 899. And we are live also on our partner media houses. We are live on BMTV, and BMTV is on channel 114 on Topstar. Live also on Spice FM in Kabwe. We are live on ZFM in Kapiri, Isunga Radio in Senga Hill. We are live also on Tuta FM in Mansa, and not forgetting Platinum Radio in Ndola and Katete FM as well in Katete Eastern Province. We will make that effort to have Doc back, and of course we are speaking with Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane. He is the immediate past Minister of Finance and National Planning, and we have Doc back. Doc, good to have you back. Apologies once again, technology seemed to have failed us again, but it's good to have you back. Please finish your thought.
Yeah, I was talking about what has enabled the private sector to be major suppliers of electricity. This came about because in the past there was a problem of those generating electricity transporting that electricity to where it was needed. If you were producing electricity in Mamba and you wanted that electricity to sell it to the mining companies, you had to use the ZISCO transmission lines, and conditions were not permissive. Conditions did not allow you to use those transmission lines. So many people therefore said, why should I generate electricity? How am I going to transport it to where it is needed? The reform that has been undertaken says those transmission lines are now open to everybody. So now it becomes possible, and this is why you are seeing within 5 years, 1,000 megawatts extra generation capacity created because the roadblock of using transmission lines has been removed. One other thing that has happened, the transmission lines, the time when we have power shortage like what we had in 2024, without sufficient generating capacity in the country, you have to import electricity. Okay, you have to import electricity. There were countries that had excess electricity generation, but they were not always able to export their power to Zambia because you need a transmission line from that country to Zambia. We have transmission lines from South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. But those transmission lines have technical limitations. Okay, so to address that, we now also have, we are in the construction phase of transmission lines from East Africa. So in the next year or two, we have connecting lines to East Africa. And by East Africa, I mean Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and even Ethiopia. Which means if we get a terrible drought and those transmission lines have been completed, we will now be able to import electricity from East Africa to complement whatever we import from the Southern Africa. So that will provide a relief. And similarly, if they have a drought in East Africa or Southern Africa and we have sufficient, we'll be able to export to them. So in a sense, therefore, Zambia is poised. Zambia is almost at the point where it becomes the most important power trading country in the region, where exporters and importers use our infrastructure to be able to trade electricity. And this is one of the positive things that is going to happen in our country. I think I've answered that issue of ZESCO.
Right.
Airlines, maybe one airlines have taken note. NEMA, yes, NEMA requires some changes. The problem about NEMA is that the benefits are stripping the contributions. Now you can imagine like car insurance. If everyone is always going to claim, oh, my car has been bashed, my car has been stolen, my car caught fire, and there are not sufficient people who are making the payments, who are insuring, then of course the insurance company goes bankrupt. So NEMA is the same. The number of beneficiaries and the intensity of the claims is stripping or is exceeding the contributions that people are making. So we need to make the reform so that indeed NEMA as a health institution remains intact, but we have to bring a balance between the claims and the contributions. So this is something that I think the government will be addressing.
Thank you very much, Doc. Let me give you some more calls. Good morning. Thank you for calling. Please quickly share your name and where you're calling us from.
No, bwana moderator, Musokotwane studio.
Tauka Musokotwane atibandani mutumira kuti.
No, zinangane Fraser, nitumira pa Misisi.
Pitirizani.
Ba Dr. Musokotwane Musokotwane studio.
Bwina muli bwanji.
Stefani Funseko kuli ba doctor. Pali debt cancellation onakamba debt yani wala futa hii. Nazavu kapai cause wewe kamba wanalipirako. How much money wanalipirako kuli Nkongoli za IMF. Then two, IMF tunamungamno mzame sitanzira because nazofuta kama tuna saini futi due na IMF. Ushendrama za matenga ma target. Ushendrama za matenga kumakopa kuma natural resources. This is a story ganji muno mzambe because we cannot live Pankongole. What Pankongole what if this maningi. Then yozizira yabana wa school free education. How many nations bana school of home class? What on bana bangala vikopo as now. Banda ku school mabuge na nguswacha ongewa. Senzani buno sikomai.
Zikoma kwambiri.
Yeah.
Great. I believe his question on free education. I think it's pupil-teacher ratio issues. But Doc, you can quickly respond to him, or maybe I give you one more call. Let me give you one more call, Doc. Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Good morning. Abadiba Edwin Kombe.
Yes, Edwin Pitirizan.
Kwa George. Ya wakabwanje ba finance minister ko.
Bwina muli bwanji.
Ya tiamikira munabwere afuti mu parliament munabwere tiamikira maningi kuti you are back again. But my concern is the finance minister dealing with economy muzwa emotion economy nenda then munabadwa muzambia makuri muzambia muziba Zambia ise bantu banu eri musogolera ventifuna muno muzambia kuti mutisebenzere muziba kuti muzambia muno ngati pasaka pakona palibe saka yaunga pakona palibe saka amalasha muziba kuti vintu vativuta ife slogan yenze liko ngati mwamuna alepera kufaka sakamasha pakona sakayaunga alepera kunkhala mwamuna. But muno Muzambia muno mavuto achipakira. Mukamba mushe man, you speak well man, in economy apa mwiga vale gavana, but per ground there's nothing. So sinizi nakuti my MPs, and you also your MP, my MPs, my councillor, the many wakutana update uko ku parliament kuti mukombo ni mulibwiro masokune. Nishi the information waitenga kuti, because the men venti pita mu society, me I live in Kwa George. Come Kwa George, person branch Kwa George mkaone ziti Kwa George, even ma CDF, even what. Basakala sankana chabe, kusankala sankana, mwene wazi wanirana. But wakabwera uko, wabacha report everything is well. So sometimes, vinangu vindu, go deliberately, send them and my private in channel, make sure CDF we, bantu wapo ka or branch. Because mukambati bantu wapo kama CDF machanja kulibe what is happening mukombo kulibe, they are quite what is happening for my family. Then you go system but and drama if you want to join we have to pay more money umudipira uja mundu amene chabwanyi vemene uko simuziva. So CDF is nothing mukombo ni muno chifuka still na CDF imangala 5 years I never witnessed CDF malonzo rochari itatima kwa kutenga marriage watenga machari but they don't come back to us again my own. Because baba pita matenga marriage number machari number zaka kuitani but ukawakonka they speak nothing about the region but mukangala kumwamba mukamba everything is well. So please tiangane mkono tavutika munabwerera hapo futi kubwerera hapo chivantu vamukondani vantu kati vakondani machiyani vene vafuna vantu vevi mukombozi noti mukabwera hapo manje kuzabwera cyber kuzabwera chani maloking until 5 years. Thank you.
Zikomo Bakombe. Because of time, we'll take that as our last caller. Doc, you can react.
Thank you. On the quality of education, yes, that is an issue. The first step, of course, which was necessary was to open the doors for those who could not afford to pay to come and come back to school. It is a very good thing because the worst thing that you have is to have children who can't go to school. This is part of the reason why of these junkies on the streets. Of course, making education free is now congested the system. It's a good problem because it gives us an opportunity now to solve those problems. But the worst thing was to keep these children out of school. I believe that in the next 5 years, we'll continue very aggressively to provide education. I think one of the issues is that it depends from place to place. For us in the rural constituencies, people love this free education because they were the victims. But now we have to address issues, indeed, as you say, quality of education. We have problems of, I think, our colleagues, the teaching profession, we have to address certain issues. One of those issues is that many of them still resist going in remote places, villages. They prefer to be in bombers. So we've seen schools around bombers with too many teachers at the bomber, the urban areas. But you go deep in the villages, you find we don't have the sufficient number of teachers that we desire to have. So we have to deal with problems like that. We also have to deal with the issues of sometimes there are teachers who are indisciplined. I think the other year we saw some teacher who was caught drunk during teaching period. I don't believe he was the only one. There are many others who behave like that. So I think government working together with the representatives of these teachers, we have to agree. You are hired to provide quality education to the children. If you deviate from that, like getting drunk or not paying attention, we have to agree that we can't work together. So these are the issues that we have to address. Education, Zach's education. We can only play with education at our own peril. If you look at all these countries which are rich, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, they have no copper. Land is very short. No minerals. How did they become rich? They become rich because of the quality of the human being. The quality of the human being means the human being must be trained, must be taken to school, must be trained to be a competent worker, whether they are engineers, whether they are plumbers, whether they are farmers. Education is the future of the economy. We can't afford to play around with it. So there will be no compromise on the issue of teachers who don't take their jobs seriously. Toll-gates, all the money collected from toll-gates goes back into the road sector. Not even a cent is kept away. Of course, the toll-gates themselves, they generate some money, but not enough to sort out all the roads. So we have to supplement that from the general tax revenues, but otherwise the toll-gate themselves, money goes into the road sector. CDF, I think the statement by Mr. Kombe gives us an opportunity to relook at the issue in terms of improving it. If there are other people who have views on CDF, please find a way of extending those views to government, because our idea is to improve this facility. There's no going backwards on CDF. We can only talk about improvement. The experiences on CDF are different. If you look at a rural constituency like mine, Liwa, if you say to them abolish CDF, then you are looking for a big fight, because they've seen the benefits. They are getting grants from CDF. They are getting loans from CDF. They are getting community projects like more classroom blocks. They are being constructed. Teachers' houses are being constructed. Health facilities, they are being constructed. As I said, for us in Liwa, every 8 kilometers or so, we have health facilities with and all this is from CDF. So you cannot tell the rural voter to say abolish CDF because you are looking for a big fight. They've seen the benefits in all ways. So what I seem to be getting from Mr. Kombe's statement is that the way CDF is being administered here in the urban areas perhaps needs to be looked into. That is fine. That is fine. I think he's right. Gives us an opportunity to ask questions. Why is it that in the rural areas, people love CDF, and we can see the impact that is creating? And this is why, again, if you look at the voting pattern, the voting patterns for this government, especially in the rural areas, people have voted for this government in the areas where previously would not expect those votes. To imagine that today UPND can be voted, can get an MP in Chulubia Island, can get an MP in Funaboli, get an MP in so many places. It is because of CDF. Okay, it is because of CDF. People are saying, thank you, you've changed our lives. So Mr. Kombe says here in the urban areas, this is not the case. which is fine. I think we have to ask ourselves questions as a party, what is missing in the urban areas. So thank you for raising that. I will address the issue. Yeah.
We're coming towards the end of the program, Doc. Let me take this opportunity to also recall that in the speech for the president post-election, he did recognize those who did not vote for him, and I would say that the numbers are quite overwhelming, and bookmakers are simply dubbing that as a protest vote towards the high cost of living. Is this an issue that you have taken note of? Is this vote an indication that you need to do more as a government?
The government must always do more, but to call that a protest vote, I don't think so, because for me, at least at this stage, I would say the core support of the PF and the successor Tonse has remained what it is. The core support of the UPND has remained what it is, but has actually added because of those constituencies that we got, which we never expected. We have won most of the constituencies in Lusaka, which was never the case before, in 2021, and those inroads in the eastern. So the protests, I'm not sure, but the truth is that any government must always try and do more. The specific issue that you've raised is that of the cost of living. Now, the cost of living, I think also you need to be aware of certain things. One of the things that you need to be aware is that to look at the cost of living alone is a partial or incomplete analysis. We talk about prices and incomes as a totality. Why do we do that? Because if you look at prices alone, you'll be misled. At the time when I was going to school, as a school child in Livingstone, we were buying pairs of trousers for 4 kwacha, 5 kwacha, 11 kwacha. Today, a pair of trousers, you are going in hundreds of kwacha. The first bus fare I ever paid from Mongo to Lusaka, it was 2 kwacha 56 ngwe. 2 kwacha 56 ngwe from Mongo to Lusaka. Today, that fare is hundreds of kwacha, I think about 450 kwacha. So on the face of which you would say, why have people continued to travel if the fare has increased from 250 to 400 and something? How come people are still traveling? The answer is yes, the costs went up, but incomes also went up. Similarly, pair of trousers, shoes, cars. I think cars those days were about 200 kwacha. Now you're talking about thousands of kwacha, but people are still buying cars when the prices have gone up. What is the explanation? The explanation is that incomes have also gone up. So in addressing this issue of cost of living, there will be some prices that will come down, especially with exchange rate that is stabilized. Commodities at an abundant supply, like maize. But let's not imagine that the cost of living issue will only be addressed by pushing prices down. Another important agenda item there is how do we raise incomes? In the same manner that people continue to buy cars today, from 200 kwacha a car to hundreds of thousands, in the same manner that people travel today from a bus fare of 2.50 to a bus fare of 450 because incomes have gone up. So part of the answer is how do we raise the income of the people so that they feel they are living well. This is where jobs come in. This is where quality jobs come in, so that, yes, as prices go up, although they've stabilized now, the same individual has a job, therefore has an income, can purchase something. The same individual, their salaries are rising, therefore they can buy something. So this is why I said earlier on that we have to focus a lot on the labor market so that jobs are created, companies set up, because when people get incomes, the cost of living automatically gets addressed, even as some prices, especially those for imported items, go down because of the exchange rate. I also want to say, Zach, that the cost of living story, it also depends on who you are and where you are. This is again where you see the difference in behavior of the rural voters to the urban voters. If you go in the rural areas now, you see the lives of the rural people are changing, especially where there's serious farming taking place. You see a lot of people have bought motorcycles, people have bought canters, people are building houses made out of better materials rather than poor and mud. So what I see is that the people who are doing agriculture in the rural areas, their lives have improved. They don't talk about the cost of living, because if it's food, they don't buy food, they eat their own food. So they don't care whether a bag of meal is 300, 400, because they're just going to mill their maize. So it depends on who you are. If you are living in an urban area where you have no lands to till, or you don't want to till lands because you don't want to go back home, definitely the cost of living, when you complain, we understand you. So the issue then is it possible to provide some relief to those of our people who are living where they cannot cultivate? And the answer is yes. And this is where social cash transfer for the elderly people, we've been giving them, and the president just increased the amount so that we cushion them from the problems of cost of living. And in my mind, also things like cash for work, for those who are able-bodied, they are not old, so therefore they should not get free money, they should work for it. Cash for work is a relief. In my mind also, the issue of free education, which our competitors never want us to talk about because it doesn't suit them. But for us, we must speak about this, because free education is a relief. Free education reduces the cost of living of the individual, because where previously you were paying money, government is doing that job for you. Where you had to pay examination fees, government is doing that job for you. Surely that has taken away some burden from you, and you must recognize. So the approach, therefore, has been to target not just a wholesale scheme, but to target those who are needy, the old, the weak, the physically handicapped. We target this. The problem about wishing to cover everybody to reduce their cost of living through subsidies is that it is unsustainable. If you reduce the cost of meal for everybody, if you literally you are saying, let's go to the farmers and tell the farmer, Mr. Farmer, instead of you selling your bag of maize for 350 kwacha, sell it for 200 kwacha, so that Mr. Banda, who is in Kanyama, Mr. Muvita, who is in Long Acres, can have cheap food. Now, is that a fair request? Is that a fair request for this country, for an able-bodied person to go and tell the farmer, we'll pay you less so that me, who is in Lusaka, can eat cheap food? Do you think, Zach, that this is a reasonable thing to do? No, we can't do that, because the farmer also deserves to have the full benefits of his or her sweat. Okay, and this is why you see the production of maize has gone up, because farmers now are getting reasonable compensation for their sweat. And if anyone feels that we are overpaying the farmers, if anyone feels that the farmers are being overpaid, you are basically saying that there's a lot of money in the maize, there's a lot of money to be made in maize. Therefore, your response should also be, if I can, let me grow the maize, because then this money, a lot of money in the maize, it can go in my pocket. So, yes, we respond to support those who are weak, as I explained, through various schemes, social cash transfer, cash for work. But it is up to us also as individual Zambians. It is up to us as individual Zambians. If there's money to be made in farming, go and make that money by growing the maize. But don't say to the farmer, we'll underpay you so that I can eat well. The farmer is not your slave. Okay? The farmer is not your slave. The farmer is also entitled to a fair price. So I think this is the issue of the cost of living. We'll create the jobs so that people are in jobs. We'll continue to support those who are weak through social cash transfer, cash for work, and we'll continue to take the burden off the public by paying for their school children. But it's also necessary for us as individuals to make those changes in our lives so that perhaps if there's more money to be made for maize, let me grow it and not expect farmer Mr. Monga to grow cheap food for me.
Doc, thank you very much for accepting our invitation today. And I know that 2 months ago, because of time, I wanted you to speak about this. 2 months ago, you were recognized as the Finance Minister of the Year. And of course, this was done so by Africa Banker magazine. Also, what would you say this means to you? Just under a minute.
Well, we are most grateful. I think that recognition was not to me as an individual. That recognition was to our country. That recognition was to the leadership, starting from the president, the cabinet, the staff of the institutions that we work with. So it just shows that when there's good teamwork, you can achieve quite a lot.
Thank you very much, Doc, for accepting our invitation, and we can only wish you and the UPND all the best, and you personally all the best, hoping that, the president again recognizes your input and gives you another important ministerial position to help steer the country into a better place to live in. Thank you once again for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
There you have it. To you, our listener, we thank you so much for having followed our conversation, and of course to our partner media houses for having carried this particular edition of The Burning Issue. Be rest assured that we will be back this Thursday with yet another edition of The Burning Issue. And do join Ambassador Frank Mtubila with his guest on Thursday. And from all of us here is take care of yourselves and more so of each other. Bye-bye.